I'm worried for the future of Black Ops 6 Zombies. Now, a lot of this video is going to sound very negative, and honestly, some of it is, but keep in mind that most of this is just caution, right? It's just me being kind of worried for certain things that might end up happening based on some of the leaks and rumors we have about the DLC of this game, as well as the fact that Treyarch has to make next year's Call of Duty as well. They are not just developing this year's Call of Duty. And I think a lot of these concerns are warranted, but at the end of the day, I don't want it to sound like I'm just complaining just for the sake of it. I have genuine concerns here that I thought it would be interesting to discuss. One thing that already has me worried on a personal note is the fact that I already kind of feel bored of Black Ops 6 Zombies. Now, I know there's a lot of players out there who, they'll grind the game out, they'll have the mastery camo unlocked, they'll be like almost prestige master, and then those players will be the ones to say that they're bored of the game. Like, obviously they're going to get bored of the game because they played it so much. But I'm not necessarily one of those people. I'm only Prestige 4 in this game, so I haven't even played it nearly as much as some other people have. But what I've played, I've really enjoyed. I just don't have any motivation to play more, like completely zero motivation. It was maybe like a week or two after Citadel came out where I just stopped wanting to play Black Ops 6 Zombies, and I went to play other games or even just older Call of Duty games. I went back to older Zombies maps. I played a lot of Infinite Warfare Zombies recently even. I came back for the Jingle Hells LTM as well as the Squid Game LTM, but neither of those LTMs were enough to really keep me invested in the game long term. I just kind of didn't really feel like playing anymore. So now I'm just kind of sitting here waiting for DLC 2 to come out or maybe other updates that they give to Zombies, and then I'll definitely be more interested in playing more. Now, ultimately, this is not an end of the world scenario. I'm not one of those people that's going to be freaking out at the fact that I don't really feel like playing the newest Call of Duty. That's not a big deal. There are other video games to play. There are other things to do in my life. I don't have to be playing the newest Call of Duty all day long. So just because I'm not like actively motivated to play all the time is not really a big deal. The problem with this though is that it kind of tells me how I truly feel about the game, because if I go back to something like a Black Ops 3 or Black Ops 4 during their life cycles, I really never got the same feeling where I suddenly just felt bored of the game. I remember when we were waiting for Zetsubo no Shima after Horizon came out, there was a pretty decent gap there, and then even a bigger gap between Zetsubo and Garada Krovi, and there was like no content in between those points. But I never felt bored of Shadows of Evil, The Giant, or Horizon at that point. And then of course, waiting for Garada Krovi, I was playing a lot of Zetsubo. Like, I just didn't get bored of these maps. I didn't get bored of that game. Same thing happened in Black Ops 4. I just didn't really get bored of the maps. Sometimes you'd have a game like World War II where I wasn't really bored of the game necessarily. There was just so many other games at that time, like Fortnite, that I ended up playing a lot more of that than World War II, but the game itself was still keeping me invested whenever I did hop into it. But nowadays, it's not even that there's so many other games available, it's more so just I just don't really feel like playing Black Ops 6 Zombies that much. And at least for me, I think this is due to a couple different factors. First of all, the overall gameplay loop of Black Ops 6, it's really good in small amounts. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with the gameplay loop when you're just playing every now and then, but trying to actively play again and again and again, I just feel like each match gets so repetitive, mainly in the early rounds. And I know some people will argue that Zombies has always been like that, but I don't really feel that way. If I go back to a map like Origins, you have a lot of options with how you're going to play a map like Origins. And I think a big part of that is honestly the point system. The point system plays a big role in variety game to game, whether it's what gun you use or just overall how many points you're earning and how fast you're earning those points and how fast you're getting through the map. Like, all of that changes game to game, and I think it's very interesting. Whereas in BO6, you're pretty much getting through the map at the same point every single time you play. And of course, you could use other loadout weapons. I'm not always using the same gun, but still, the guns all kind of have the same purpose and they don't really feel that different from one another, especially in the earlier rounds. So it just kind of feels less interesting to me. And even though Black Ops 6's maps are definitely a step above Black Ops Cold War's maps, I still feel like they lack depth compared to the Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and Infinite Warfare maps. There's just not as many things to learn and master on these maps. There are definitely some elements in terms of like the different weapon builds that you can have. There's definitely a lot of depth there, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to actual like map specific depth, there's just barely anything there. I pretty much learned and mastered the entire map within the first week of it coming out, maybe even the first couple days of it being out. And I know that's not going to be the case for most players. I'm sure there's lots of casual players who haven't even done the Citadel Easter egg yet, and maybe they're trying to do it right now as we speak. But for me, I'm more of a hardcore fan, and yeah, I was able to do it the first day of the game, and I did all the side quests pretty early on. and I pretty much mastered it. There really wasn't much to learn, there really wasn't much depth to it, therefore it ends up being a bit less replayable. I mean, that's the thing for me. How long it takes to learn and master a map is really a huge part of the replayability. For example, I am still trying to do Mephistopheles to this day in Infinite Warfare because it's a very difficult boss fight. That is replayability right there. That is a boss fight that is difficult and requires you to actually do a lot to learn it. And don't get me wrong, Citadel has a good boss fight, but it's not particularly one that has like a ton of depth to it. It's just one that as long as you bring in a really solid weapon, you're going to be doing enough damage to kill the boss. And yeah, you might die every now and then because some of the attacks could definitely get you into situations that get you killed. But the main point here is that there just isn't enough depth to these Easter eggs, and even just the maps in general. There's not enough unique stuff either, which is why I think Citadel got boring a lot quicker than Terminus and Liberty Falls did. Even though I prefer Citadel as a map much more than Terminus and Liberty Falls, at least those launch maps for Black Ops 6 was the launch of the game, so we were also learning all the different Black Ops 6 mechanics while we were playing those maps. So that got me to play the game a lot more. I was learning all the different augments, I was learning all the different systems in the game and how they operate, but Citadel doesn't really change much. The map is pretty much very similar to the other two maps. A lot of the systems carry over almost exactly the same. It's not like Black Ops 2, 3, 4, and Infinite Warfare, where there's lots of new mechanics and features brought into the DLC maps. Citadel basically has the same template that Terminus does. It's just, of course, a completely different map itself. Like, obviously, the map layout is different, the theming is different, the music is different, the Easter egg is different, the wonder weapons are different. The obvious things are different. Like, obviously, those are going to change map to map, but a lot of the stuff just carries over exactly the same. And I think we're missing map unique things in newer zombies that kind of set themselves apart from other maps. And side Easter eggs as well, there's just not enough side Easter eggs that are worth doing or that interesting either. So basically the point here isn't that we're not getting enough maps for zombies, because obviously that's not the case. You know, 3 maps at this point in the life cycle is very normal. Actually, it's more than usual. So the solution shouldn't just be to add more maps. I see a lot of people saying we just need more maps, we need more maps. What we need is more maps that have more depth to them, that have more replayability to them, that have more uniqueness to them. That is what we need. And it doesn't have to be a bunch of more maps. Honestly, I would rather take 2 more maps that are very in-depth, very high quality, have a lot of insane stuff to them, over like 4 maps that are all going to be kind of on the same par as the Black Ops 6 maps. And this isn't saying anything negative about the Black Ops 6 maps themselves, at least when it comes to Terminus and Citadel. I love these maps. They're my favorite 2 maps since Ancient Evil. Like, they are really fun and enjoyable. But the thing is that they just really don't compare to a lot of the Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, and even Infinite Warfare maps. And even so far as to the point where I'm kind of liking Citadel less over time. Like, I actually would drop it a little bit in my ranking over the past couple weeks, because if a map can't keep me invested for like a few months at least, then I feel like it's maybe not as good as I originally thought it was. It's still a solid map. Like, it's not going to just suddenly be a bad map. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just not nearly as good as it was within that first week. I think a lot of the map was mainly just exciting the first time I played it, and especially the first time I did the Easter egg. Like, all that stuff was great, but I just don't think it has that replay value. That is what it's missing more than anything. So what about the rest of the DLC season? What are we looking at when it comes to the new maps? Now, there are some leaks and rumors that are already telling us exactly what the locations are going to be for these maps. And obviously we have no idea what the depth of these maps are going to be like. We have no idea how much content's going to be on them. We have no idea if they're going to be better or worse than the maps we already have. But what's already really worrying me about these leaked maps is that the locations themselves do not sound interesting whatsoever. Now, the important word there is that they don't sound interesting. That does not mean they can't be interesting. They certainly can be. There's plenty of maps throughout Zombies history that on paper, they don't sound interesting whatsoever. But when you actually get it in practice, it ends up being a really cool map. And of course, these are just leaks. They are certainly subject to change, but let's just kind of go through them. First of all, DLC 2 is of course going to be the dig site map. Now, a lot of people are speculating this is going to be an Origins remaster or Origins reimagining of some sort. I don't think it's going to be that whatsoever. They might have some references to Origins here or there just for fun, but I really don't think it's going to be an Origins heavy map like a lot of people are saying. It's going to be a dig site in Avalon, because that's what they said. I said it's very close to where Citadel is, so it's going to be a very close in proximity to that map. And I believe it's going to be mostly an underground map. It's probably going to be more similar to Buried than Origins, to be honest, where there's going to be a lot of like underground dig sites, and it's going to be like ancient ruins type stuff that are going to be underground. That's my guess, and I'm assuming we're going to get some more chaos elements in this map, even more than what Citadel had, and it certainly has potential to be really cool. My idea of what this map could be is it can be some sort of like Indiana Jones type map where you kind of like go underground and uncover these secrets, and there's lots of different puzzles that are hidden and a lot of, you know, chaos stuff as well. And and then it can actually be a really cool map. Like, I think this does have potential. The dig site idea on paper does not sound interesting, but when you kind of get into the ideas of what it could be, it starts to sound a little bit more interesting. Now, DLC 3 is currently rumored to be Janus Towers. It's not going to be called Janus Towers, but it's going to be at Janus Towers, which of course is from Project Janus, and it also takes place very close to Liberty Falls, or it might even be in Liberty Falls. And there certainly is potential for this map. I know there was a leaked Mecha Klaus boss enemy that definitely would fit in a map like this, just because Klaus kind of fits in with the whole Project Janus thing. So I definitely think there could be some interesting elements here, but on paper, this doesn't sound like that interesting of a map. It sounds like another facility map that I personally am not like that excited to play. It's probably not going to have a lot of chaos influence whatsoever. I do think a tower map could be kind of interesting though, especially if they do end up adding the grappling hook, which was in one of the campaign missions. So I definitely could see the grappling hook coming to zombies, and that would fit really well in this map, especially if it was a unique thing to this map. That could be pretty cool. So there's definitely potential. I'm not going to throw away the potential, but I don't think the idea is as interesting as it should be. The Reagan Mark II has been leaked to come at some point in Black Ops 6's DLC season, so I think this might be the best map to have the Reagan Mark II be on, just because if this location is doing a bunch of different experiments and such, maybe they're also creating weapons, and I would assume that the Reagan Mark II could be one of those. Now, DLC 4 is where things get kind of really disappointing, just because it just, again, sounds like we're not getting enough unique stuff here. DLC 4 is meant to take place in Richtofen's mansion, which of course was from the intro cutscene of Liberty Falls. And this also takes place in the Liberty Falls area, which would mean that half of this game takes place in the Liberty Falls area, which is kind of strange to me. Like, we'd never seen that before in a Call of Duty. I can't think of another Call of Duty where like half of its maps all take place within the same radius. To me, that's just really strange, and I don't really understand why. I understand thematically it makes sense, story-wise it makes sense, but I don't think we should be forcing map locations based on the story. There's ways to kind of give us other things in different locations around the world that could be a lot more interesting. Now, there has been some rumors that this map could include elements of time travel, because that is part of the experimentation that Project Janus does, and part of that could be involved in Richtofen's mansion. We also probably will have some Dark Ether stuff in this map as well, because we're probably going to be saving Richtofen from the Dark Ether, because of course he got pulled in by Samantha in the intro cutscene to Liberty Falls. Well, actually, I don't know if we're going to be saving him, but we'll at least be maybe seeing him come out of the Dark Ether or confronting him in the Dark Ether. I have no clue, but it's probably going to include some Dark Ether stuff. So there's definitely potential for this map to work and be interesting. I'm not saying it's just guaranteed like dead on arrival. That would be ridiculous to say, but I'm just not exactly sure that this location is as exciting as I want out of a new Call of Duty. I mean, let's compare it to Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4. I hate doing all the comparisons, but I think it's necessary, right? Black Ops 3, we have a medieval castle with all the snow and bows and everything like that, right? And of course, this game also had a medieval castle, but I would say that Dreisendracht's castle just is a little bit more interesting than what Citadel was. Then, of course, we had the Zetsubenoshima Island with all the spiders and the creepy vibes to it, a lot of horror to it. We had a giant war-torn Stalingrad with dragons, and then, of course, Revelations was just like a mashup of a bunch of different maps with this crazy skybox. Like, there's very different, unique things to each of those maps. Black Ops 4 is the same deal. I mean, you have a map that takes place in an Egyptian Colosseum with gladiators. You have a map on the Titanic. You have a map on Alcatraz Island. Like, there's all sorts of things that they do, and I just don't feel like Black Ops 6 is completely nailing that. Now, again, they can definitely find ways to make it more interesting. Like, for example, going back to Black Ops 3, if Gorod Krovi didn't have dragons, it wouldn't have been that interesting. Being in Stalingrad, that really wouldn't have been that interesting. It's like, okay, you know, Stalingrad has its history to it, sure, but is that great for a zombies map? It would fit probably better in like campaign or something like that. But no, it was absolutely perfect in zombies because of the dragons. They added so much atmosphere to that map. So definitely there's potential that these DLC maps can do the same thing. If they decide to throw in some really insane things into these maps, really insane elements and features, then it can definitely make the map feel a little bit more interesting. But just based on what we know right now, I'm just not really feeling it. Now, as for game modes, the only ones that were leaked were Grief, Turned, and Classic. Now, Classic, I'm honestly not expecting to see whatsoever. I think that was honestly just like misinterpreted by the leakers. I really am just doubting we're getting into Classic mode at this point. I kind of believed it at first, but I'm at a point now where I'm like, I just don't see it happening. And honestly, I don't even think I really need it to happen or want it to happen, because ultimately, I don't think they're ever going to make the exact changes that are necessary for it to actually feel like classic zombies. Because for me, you have to have the classic point system for it it to feel like classic zombies. Just taking away the armor, the rarity, and all that stuff, it's not going to really make it feel like classic zombies. So I don't think it's a mode I'm going to want to play. If it doesn't have that classic point system, I don't really care. So I don't really know if I even want this to be a thing in the first place. Grief, obviously I want. Turned, couldn't care less about Turned. So in terms of the game modes, definitely not a lot of like crazy sounding things, but I'd definitely be curious to see Grief return more than anything, because we haven't seen Grief since Black Ops 2, and I really want that to return. And then when it comes to new boss enemies and perks, honestly, none of that really matters. I don't think any new boss or perk that's added is going to really change that much about the game itself. It's just extra content they get to mess around with. Cool. Doesn't really change how I feel to a significant degree. But then we get to one of the most worrying things about this DLC season, more than anything, and this is the fact that Treyarch is making next year's Call of Duty, or at least that is the current rumor, and it's a very, very, very reliable rumor, so I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's probably not gonna happen. It probably is. So the current rumor is that the next Call of Duty in 2025, which of course will probably release sometime in like October or November, it's gonna be a Black Ops 2 sequel in terms of the story, so it's gonna take place I think like 10 years after Black Ops 2's campaign, so it's going to be probably Black Ops 7. I don't know what they're going to title it exactly, but we're going to call it Black Ops 7 for now. That is the current rumor that Treyarch has been working on that game for quite some time. So what does that mean for zombies? Well, it means they're going to make a whole nother zombies mode next year as well, which means they're working on that zombies mode now, and they probably have been for a while, which means we're probably going to get less content in depth to the maps that they were adding to this game. I guarantee you, if Treyarch didn't have to make a whole nother zombies mode next year and they had more time to work on the current maps in the game, they would have put more stuff into the maps. They would have put more depth into them. I really think they would have. But how are they going to do that when they're forced to make 2 games in a row? And it honestly hurts so bad because there's been so many years in a row of some really bad development issues with Call of Duty games that have led to the CODs having a lot less content than they should, or a lot more issues than they probably should have. And we were so excited for Black Ops 6 because it was, you know, gonna have 4 years of development time, the most amount of development time for any Call of Duty ever. But is it really 4 years of development time if Treyarch had to work on Vanguard Zombies, Modern Warfare Zombies, even some other elements of like Modern Warfare 2 with like ranked play and such? Obviously that's not for zombies, but still other parts of Treyarch were working on that game. And then now they were also working on Black Ops 7 probably for the last like at least year and a half, right? There's no way they just started working on Black Ops 7 right when Black Ops 6 released. They've obviously been working on it even sooner. So they're working on like basically 2 games at the same time, and I just think that's kind of a mess. And obviously I don't know everything. I don't know everything about the behind the scenes. I don't know exactly what's going on. This is all just concerns. Again, this is not me making statements. It's me being concerned. But that does worry me. That worries me for what they can do with these DLC maps. That worries me for what they can even do for Black Ops 7 itself. I just can't wait for things to get back on track, which I think they will sooner rather than later, because once we get Modern Warfare 4 in 2026, that will be Infinity Ward's like 4-year development game. And assuming there hasn't been like significant development issues with that game, they will have had a full 4 years with literally no interruptions. And then after that will be Sledgehammer's next game in 2027, which that will also have 4 years development. Then of course 2028 would probably be Treyarch's next game after Black Ops 7, which will have 3 years development time. But that's better than, you know, having to make 2 games in a row like this. So I definitely think we're going to get back on track eventually and things are going to get back to normal. But right now it's just kind of hectic, and I feel for the developers, because I feel like they don't want to be making all this content and they don't want to have all these different crunch times. But unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is, and I'm just really worried for how the content's going to actually look. But don't get me wrong, Treyarch has done a really good job in a lot of different elements in Black Ops 6. I mean, I've mentioned how much I love the boss fights in this game when it comes to the Patient 13 boss fight on Terminus, as well as the Citadel de Mor, the Guardian boss fight. They are fantastic. They look amazing. They are great. And I'm sure we're going to get some stuff like that in the future DLC maps as well. But when there isn't much depth in the rest of the maps, it's gonna hold back replayability. And again, like I said before, that's gonna hurt the game long term. It's not gonna keep me playing consistently throughout the year when I really wish it was. I really wish it was doing more to bring me in. And there's other things that they could do that don't really require much development time. I mean, if they implemented some sort of system where you can grind challenges and get COD points for it, I would play the hell out of Zombies. Like if you told me that I have to do a Easter egg speed run on, let's say, Terminus and do it under like 40 minutes or something, and you get like, I don't know, 100, 500 COD points for that or something, I would do the hell out of that. I would do it so many times just to get those COD points. Now I know that's not up to the developers. Obviously Activision probably wouldn't allow that, but that would get me to consistently play regardless of the game loop itself not being the best or the depth of the maps not being that heavy. There's definitely ways for them to make the game more replayable regardless. I just don't think a camo grind is enough for me because I don't really find the camo grind to be that fun. I'm gonna do it, but it's not like that fun to do. And the last concern I have to talk about is, of course, all the AI nonsense going on, where, of course, the voice actors have, or at least some of the voice actors have decided to leave because they haven't been getting AI protections that they, of course, deserve to have. Now, this isn't really going to affect, like, the overall replayability of the game, but what it is going to affect is not only the quality, but also just, like, how I feel about the game, how I feel about the situation going on, because it really sucks to know that these actors and actresses that are really passionate about these characters just can't play the characters anymore because they're not being given certain protections that just kind of make sense that they should be given. So that's a really unfortunate situation that I've talked about it before. It really sucks and it's really annoying. And it's one of those situations that I honestly don't expect to get any better. I don't think there's much they can do about it because Activision's going to be pretty stingy about it and it's probably not going to change, unfortunately. So that is another thing that I'm definitely concerned about for the future of Call of Duty Zombies. And overall, that is the main things that I am genuinely concerned about with Black Ops 6's DLC season. I'm still really excited though, don't get me wrong. Any sort of concerns or worries I have are just that. It doesn't mean I'm not hyped at all. It doesn't mean I'm not looking forward to it. I'm still going to be there day one, playing the maps as soon as possible. I'm going to be reacting to the trailers. I'm going to be doing all sorts of reviews, talking about the game a bunch. I'm still enjoying it. That's not the issue here. The issue is I'm not consistently playing it like I did for some of the other Call of Duties. And to me, that tells me that I'm probably not enjoying the game as much as I should be. I obviously have a lot of worries about zombies in the future as well, but for the most part, I'm always going to try to remain as optimistic as possible. I'm always going to be hopeful towards the future. And no matter what happens with zombies, I'm going to be hoping for the best. I'm just constantly going to be rooting for the developers and hoping that they can make the best possible mode because I think they have so much potential to make like the greatest zombies mode ever. They just haven't quite gotten there yet. There are still a lot of issues with Black Ops 6 Zombies, and honestly, I don't think this game could be that perfect game, but I think in the future, perhaps they will get it. And they don't have to make a perfect game. I'm not saying they have to. That's not really an easy task, but at least close to a perfect game. Would be really cool to see. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you all in my next one. Peace out.